First of all, my name is Ricky Ford, and I'm the president here at Northeast, and we want to extend a very hearty welcome to all our visitors here tonight, especially our students, which are the heart and soul of Northeast, and to our guests, we want to welcome all of you here tonight. You're in for a treat tonight. I told Steve Holland that I had watched part of his documentary, but I didn't watch all of it because I wanted to be surprised at the end tonight. So we're certainly in for a treat, and certainly want to honor our great friend tonight, Mr. Steve Holland. Steve and I really got to be friends when I became president, and he was our representative and working in Jackson at the Capitol. And the interesting thing about Steve is when he opened his mouth, you never knew what was coming out. But I will say this, that it was always something that was genuine. It was always something from the heart, and it was always something that would benefit the citizens, not only of Monroe and Lee and Prentiss County and North Mississippi, but the entire state of Mississippi. So it is an honor tonight to be a part of this program and to honor Mr. Steve Holland, who is a true American. He's a true Mississippian through and through. But more importantly than that, he is a true friend. So, welcome to Northeast, Mr. Holland.
Good evening. My name is Claire Leake, and I'm chair of the Cultural Arts Committee here at Northeast. I would like to thank you for coming tonight, and thank you, President Ford, for that welcome. Before we get started, a couple of reminders, especially for students. Please make sure your cell phones are put away and on silent. And if you are here for extra credit, there will be a QR code in the lobby upon completion of tonight's program. Tonight you will be seeing two documentaries by filmmaker Rex Jones of Mississippi State University. The first film, Libation and Legislation, is the story of Mississippi's legislative frat house. Legend has it that more bills were passed in the bar of the Sun and Sand than under the dome of the Capitol. In the second film, Steve Holland, Jesus Was a Democrat, a Southern undertaker ponders loss after 36 years in the Mississippi House of Representatives. After serving 9 consecutive terms as a gentleman from Lee County, Holland returns to the Capitol one last time to clean out his desk and leave public service behind. You are surely in for a treat tonight. Thank you again for being here. Enjoy.
I headed to Jackson, green as a gourd. I'd been 3 years on Jamie Whitten's staff in Washington, so I wasn't exactly a neophyte. I knew the process, but I didn't know much about Jackson, my own state capital. Where does everybody stay in Jackson? What do you do about that? Oh, the Sun and Sand. And I walk in. I said, I'm Representative-elect Steve Holland. I need my room. And she said, be glad to sign you up. And she said, you're in room 301. I said, good deal. Is 301 a good room? She said, one of the best. I said, thank you, ma'am. And she said, sir, you need to give me a credit card or pay me. And I said, you mean this darn thing costs money? Somebody told me the legislature furnished this. And I grew to love it absolutely immediately. It was the largest legislative frat house in the nation. It was a 60s place, and it still had the 60s colors and the 60s HVAC and the 60s showers. It never changed. So I stayed here from 83 to 2001 then. I stayed here the whole time. Right here. John Grisham stayed right there in this room when he was down here as a freshman. But there's a door between these two rooms, so we fraternized a whole lot. Y'all got to let me tear one of these pictures. Every darn room, this thing's got this picture in it. Can you get that off? I just got it off myself. I'm going to have the most extensive collection of Sun and Sand memorabilia in the state.
The more you move, the more you stir up the dust.
Is that right?
You'll be breathing that stuff.
Yeah, well, I've been breathing dead formaldehyde for 47 years, so. Yeah. I'm still alive. It'd like to kill me one time, but I got over it. Oops. got them both. Every room's got one. Y'all ain't missing it. Look at that. Now, is that not a wonderful thing to come into? Your telephone's set right here, of course. And that wasn't nothing but a farce there, because by God, everybody got the same dose. And when you take a shower in the morning, you better hope nobody else was taking a shower same time. That was another incentive for you to get up at 4:30 so you could get a hot shower. Wasn't very quiet here. These walls are thin. You better have a good neighbor or a cooperative neighbor. You could look out, because see, we were in a great place. We could see everything all the way around here. Everything that was going on except on the first floor. You'd hear click, click, click. Usually you surmise that it was high-heel shoes. And every now and again, you could look out and you'd see heads stick out, see if they could nosy old people, seeing if they could tell which room they were coming out of it and who they were. I've made this walk a many a day. Hey, we'd visit too in each other's room. Man, you never know which rep was gonna have a big party in their room every night. And that was a lot of fun. It was like a family reunion every night. That's what it was like. And then everything had a balcony, and it was connected by a gorgeous courtyard and a gorgeous pool that they kept up year round. Had lots of concrete around it and nice landscaping, and they kept it mowed nice. So by day and afternoon, we'd gather in the courtyards and hold forth. By night, they always kept a party room, and it had a hell of a bar down in the basement part of it, the underground part of it, under the restaurant. And of course, that's where all of Mississippi gathered that wanted anything or needed anything from the legislature. And we did way more business, quite frankly, in that bar at the Sun and Sand or around that pool than we did at the Capitol. But now, this was a very lively bar, I promise you. In let's just say 1988, there might have been 50 registered lobbyists. I think there's 600 and something last year. And you'd go out and have these stand-up whiskey drinkings down at the Ramada Inn and then come back here and shellac off your business. And of course, you very seldom paid for a drink. That's why they call it lobbyist whiskey. You would libate and legislate. Pretty interesting. Libate and legislate. This is the restaurant here, and it opened at 4:30 every morning. And most of us wouldn't come in to about 2:30 or 3, but we were up here at 4:30 because you were scared not to be up here. It's where everything happened. It was a huge round table. You'd see about 12 chairs right here. Oh my gosh, Susie was a waitress, and she was mean as hell, but we loved her good, and we tipped her big. And there was many a good meal up here. Unbelievable meals in this place. None of us went hungry, I can tell you. Legislation was made way more here than it ever was in the Capitol. You would go to the Capitol and formalize it, but either late at night underneath this was the bar, or at this round table where 12 people could sit every morning. And you got here early for one reason, because you were out if you wasn't at the round table. You just wasn't in the discussion. We passed the 87 highway program right here at this table, right here. This round table. And then and it was shellacked off down in the bar. I'm tickled to death about being in here. I may be the last living human in here. A lot of memories here. A lot of friendships made here. I made 2 or 3 damn enemies here. I wish modern day legislators had the experience of something like this, because the camaraderie in the legislature died almost when this place died. People are so disjointed, just like the whole country is, and you all partisan, and people don't get together and fellowship and have fun one with another and meet families and get to know families and go to ball games with families and share the holidays with families like we did here. They'll just have to read about it in the history books. Well, I've got some treasure. Do I need to pay anybody for this? Okay. Well, it'd probably get this bulldozed down. Oh my God, I gotta have this sign. I'm not leaving here sad. I'm not sad today, but I am remembering how glad and how blessed I've been to be elected to 9 terms by the people of Lee County, Mississippi, to the Mississippi House of Representatives. And I think of all the wonderful progress that I've been able to be involved with in those 36 years and the people that I've met along this wonderful pilgrimage. And I don't have any regrets. I'm not even sad about having to pack up because I've done it. When you look death in the face every day, it gives you the keenest perspective that this is going to end at some point. So you better enjoy every day. It may be the last that you've got.
Boo. You think your daddy was leaving you?
I have always been a happy-go-lucky fella. Enjoy a good time, a good party, enjoy friends, enjoy lots of high-spirited libation, camaraderie.
I'd relax his face. Sovereign Grand Architect of the universe, who created the CDJ and all the beings here in it and around it, who love it. We thank you for food that nourishes our body and makes our bellies full and expands our minds and even sometimes makes us want to marginally sin. And we thank you for fellowship among the saints and the sinners. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Amen.
I've been having a gathering for about 5 years every Sunday night where we make music and bring potluck and sing and have a little dark water with about 25 faithful folks. And they tell me the undertaker started this. The most unlikely person to do it. No, I'm the most likely person to do it. You better live it up, brothers and sisters, because the good Lord's going to come and get you at some point. Hope it's the good Lord. Needs to be. If it's not, you need to call me collect. It's given me a very, very deep spirituality that has very little pseudo-religious crap, if you will. I can't think of a better word, and I'm sorry I use that, but it's just how I feel about it, attached to it. Life is real. You live in the moment, and you live for a purpose, and you try to make somebody's life a little better than it's been every day of your life. And that is my spiritual core, based very much in what I call Judeo-Christian New Testament Christianity. In the legislature, oh my God, I would get so impatient with folks who said, oh, we got to study this a couple of years. And I'd go study hell. It honed in the energy, the perspective, the determination that I had for 36 years as a state legislator, I think by looking death in the face every day made me realize there's people out there that's got needs. There's people out there that are hurting, and you help them today, not 3 years from now after you study it. And I used to be prodded by my colleagues a whole lot in the legislature because they said, "You're the most impatient mother I've ever seen in my life." And I said, "I'm chairman of the damn committee. Get a life. We fixing to do this. I need to get a piece of law on the books that helps the mentally challenged, the physically infirmed." On and on and on and on and on. And it was always driven by, I think, seeing the fact that death don't take a holiday. It don't take time out.
I want to clear the record.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do?
Yes, sir.
What text it to me? Sorry about those. So
I grew up on a farm with 5 brothers and a mom and dad that were pretty good people. Dad never did anything small. He always did things big, and he started farming in 1950. Small farmer and worked in town at that time, but in 1960 he bought the Sadie J farm. Wound up with 10,000 acres at his zenith. So all 5 of my brothers and I grew up feeding cows, slopping hogs before we went to catch the school bus to go to school. Mom made sure that we were healthy and that we were clean and that we were halfway decent in our voice and our decorum at school. And Dad just worked the ever-living hell out of us is what he did. And I thought at the time it was pretty rough, but in retrospect, over all these years, it absolutely was the most pristine upbringing anybody could have. By and large, Mother's the one that directed us to what I have always known as the red letter part of the New Testament, which is the words Jesus spoke himself, where he taught folks to love each other, to respect each other, to forgive each other, and to give everybody a second chance. I've been playing the piano or organ in some church for 57 years, every frickin' Sunday of my life, somewhere. So I've been exposed to a lot of religious dogma. Some of it I liked, some of it I didn't. But the bottom line is I don't care about religion too much. I'm just deeply spiritual because of that red letter part. It's ingrained in my heart. I think because I grew up in a red letter family, they instilled in all of us a desire to just generally do good. And that for blessings that you had received, there was a price you paid for that. It's called giving back. Dad, he offered for the school board. He had 6 boys. He ought to have been interested in public education and got elected and made his mark there. Mother came along and she was such an interesting lady. Dad bought her a big house in Nettleton, which is the town south of here, where most of us went to high school. And it really wasn't our base. Plantersville was our base. There's about 6 miles that separates the two. But she moved in and just overnight decided she was going to run for mayor. And she was the first woman elected mayor of Nettleton, Mississippi, I think in about 1974 or 5. I can't remember the year. And they loved her in Nettleton. Oh my God. I mean, she would check the water system for quality. She'd climb the water tower. She would drive the garbage truck. She was a hands-on mayor. And she was also, in those days, the municipal judge by virtue of her being elected mayor of the town. So she dispensed justice in the town too. And I think that was her paving of her ultimately becoming a judge in this county, the first woman justice court judge in Lee County. And she served in that capacity, I guess, 20 plus years. I don't know exactly how long she served, but we were taught whether you actually served in a public office or whether you just were a leader in your church, a leader in the Red Cross, a leader in life, period, that was a responsibility that we had to give back, and it worked so beautifully for us, and it worked beautifully for me. There was one time that there were 4 Hollands in elective office in Lee County, and I had a reporter one time call me and ask me about that and how I felt about it, and I said, well, the Kennedys of Massachusetts and the Bushes of Texas ain't got shit on the Hollands from Plantersville, Mississippi, and Lee County.
Thank you.
Back in 1980, a man named Ronald Reagan sort of swept me off my feet, and I got off my medicine a little while and thought I was a Republican for 18 months, and I got over it and got back on my medicine, and I've been a Democrat ever since. When I say Democrat, it means progress to me. I, a long time was considered one of the most liberal white members of the Mississippi legislature, and I never was ashamed of that, really, because it depends on how you define liberal. In the state of Mississippi, any freaking thing to the left of Attila the Hun is liberal. I got asked many years ago, why are you a Democrat? And it didn't take me 2 seconds. I said, I was raised by a Christian mother in a Christian home. I've always said I thought Jesus was a Democrat. He hung out with lepers and whores and tax collectors, and the woman that committed adultery, he drew the line in the sand, said, go and sin no more. He was into redemption and not punishment. And I think that's what Democrats are into, and it's what I'm into. Government is all about empowering people to be something that they otherwise could not be. As time moved on, I was realizing that 36 years my business had grown exponentially at home. My mother was in her mid to late 80s, and she was having to run the funeral home as well as still sit on the bench in Lee County as a judge. And I literally sought providential guidance on the thing, and I decided that it was best that I go ahead and just retire on my own volition. Without being vain, there was the largest outcry I've ever seen in my life from my people. Yes, you shall run again. And I was saying, no, I don't even want to run again. And they said, you got to run. You're the voice. You're the one voice that we've got left now down there that is at least aligned somewhat with what we need, whether it's politically popular or not, and you're not so bashful that you won't espouse it every second that you're down there. So we got to have your voice. And I let them convince me. And then the other thing that happened was reapportionment. And by this time, I guess I had excoriated my Republican brothers and sisters to such a point that they said, screw him. And I went from about, I don't remember, maybe high 40s African-American district to 60s. They used a tactic that's commonly known as gerrymandering, where they put my residents in Plantersville in territory that I never run in that was almost supermajority African-American, black voting age population. People that I'd always identified with and people that I loved and people that I was very fair with. But let's face political reality. If given a chance, black people will vote for black people, and the reverse is true of white people.
You know, I feel okay. I've had 36 wonderful years of public service in the House of Representatives. And
Representative Steve Holland says the state has vastly changed in his time.
well, it's not even anywhere close to the same thing. When I entered 36 years ago, an issue was an issue. It didn't matter about party. Now, admittedly, we were all Democrats back then. But we took an issue and we seized that issue. And
with politics out of the picture, Holland says that he isn't done trying to make an impact on Lee County, and shared in this letter earlier today, sharing his love for the people in the area.
I've got a life outside the legislature, and Steve's going to be fine. I just don't know about the poor little people. I hope they'll be fine. That's who I've always taken care of and who I've always worried about.
my spirit wasn't in it. And I honestly have to admit, I was not too disappointed at all. And I have spent very little time in Jackson since then, very little time, because I'm a part of history now. I don't have an office anymore, I just have a cubicle. Looky here, elixir for the legislative process. Hey, I'm still on the payroll, I can sign a voucher, can't I? Damn, I'm finna sign one, Tammy.
Till 31st.
Praise God. Oh God, I do that every time. I've signed so many death certificates, I put my funeral licensure number every time I sign my name. Yeah, you'll hear from me. This is my old parking sign here. Hey, what's the porter's number downstairs? I could have a couple of boxes. You know, I just feel like this is the right thing that should be happening. That's sort of strange. I mean, I knew it had to end sooner or later, and I've been trying to end it on my own. I couldn't do it, so the people ended it for me. But it's all good. I ain't pissed off at a damn soul that I know of. I hate the very people that I've carried for 36 years turned on me, but that's stuff happens in life. I got other fish to fry. Hey, Rev. Pretty good. All right, this sort of, for some reason, getting a little sad. I miss Billy McCoy. We sat together 28 years. He sat right here. David Bear ran for the Senate. He was a good man. He was smart. There's some smart people on this road, I can tell you. 3 trial lawyers and me, an undertaker. And by God, about half the time I knew more about the law than they did. Let me tell you what's a tradition here. I'm about to get this cleaned out, I think. It's a long-standing tradition here that each member signs their desk every 4 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm fixing to sign the last time. Let's see if I can find a pen in here. Gentleman from Robert E. Lee, 1983, 2019. and sisters. Don't forget the least, the last, and the most vulnerable. Well, so long, farewell. It's going to be all right. It's going to be different, though. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be, I know, it's going to be very quiet, isn't it? Boy, I've stood there 1,000 times. I shot Amy Tuck the bird one time right there, walking down through there, and the damn TV cameras caught it. I started about 10 years ago not doing this elevator. I do the stairs to help me keep my weight down. All right, down, down, down. Did Edgar Allan Poe write a poem about down, down, down? I made things happen in every committee that I chaired and every committee that I sat on for 36 years. And how can anybody be sad after that? I'm tired. I'm a middle-aged man now, actually maybe upper middle-aged man. And it's time for me to retire. And so I'm going to spend the next, few years of my life I've got left reflecting on that and reliving with the people and the friends that I met some of those experiences, continuing to be involved, maybe in a smaller world than the Capitol, but still involved in my community, making a difference for people that need help. That's what I'm about. That's what I'll always be about. And when they put my fat ass in the crematory at Holland Funeral Home, somebody can say, well done, good and faithful servant. Taking it all out in the box. Not the first time I've taken something out in the box. That's the reason saying goodbye don't bother me too much. I specialize in saying goodbyes. It's been a good run, it's been a good ride, and I'm ready to go home. Be a Southern undertaker. My late mother and I talked about it a lot. She said, son, you were just providentially gifted and called to be in this business. It's hard work. It's nothing easy about it. I work many weeks, 80 hours a week here. The dead don't care if it's Pentecost or Flag Day or whatever. They just die. When I first got in the business, I'll tell you, it was a freaky experience for me. The hardest thing I had is just, I wanted to just almost slap that person and say, wake up. I didn't want them to be dead, number one. And that was the hardest thing that I had to get used to, that wasn't my role to wake them up because I couldn't. It wasn't possible. But it was my role to do the best I could with them through the embalming, as well as their families in the aftermath. A good death is one that the life had meaning, number one, not only to those closest to it, but the greater community. And number two, that you properly celebrated that life in the end, and there was enough substance in that life to make that process very complete and very fulfilling. And that to me is the good death. I mean, my mother had basically not been to a doctor in 59 years. She was getting close to 90 and worked and just fell dead, just died from absolutely nothing that we know of. And at the time, I was so in shock, I couldn't believe it. And then as the months have now rolled on, in a year or so since her death, I realized she had the good death, the most perfect death. She just went instantly from full life to death, to the reward, the eternal reward. And you can't beat that. I mean, who wouldn't hope for that and wish for that after almost 90 years of just spectacular living and contributing to mankind? I embalmed my mother, and my staff said, "Are you crazy? You can't do that." And I said, "Get out of this building. I don't want anybody in here but myself and my mama." Because I knew, number one, it was going to be done right. I knew that there would be the utmost dignity involved in the process. And as I took that hour-and-a-half process to make my mother where I wanted her to be and what I wanted her to look like, I had 5 million wonderful thoughts of the most cherished human being I'd ever known on this earth to me. And it was a peaceful thing to me. It was not joyous, but it was peaceful. It was comforting. It was cathartic. It made me think about how rich and how valuable my mother's life had been, and then how special it was not only that she was my mother. She broke the glass ceiling for women like you wouldn't believe. And I said, "Oh, this is a revered soul, not just for me, but for the community." And it was not a thing of negativity for me. And I did it, and I did it right, and I got a lot of strength and peace from it. Now, can you imagine in 49 years how many sermons I've heard on heaven? Oh my gosh. A blender the size of a concrete mixer couldn't mix them all up. And I've heard everything from mansions and cities foursquare, and all that's fine, good with me. I don't judge any of that. As for me, I have been blessed to have some kind of redemptive experience in my life that came from a combination of many things, from a loving mother, for one thing, and a father who made us go to church, which sort of turned me against it. I don't know what's going to happen after this is all over, but I know one thing. Wherever Mama is, that's where I'm going. And that's about all that's important to me. And she was a saint. So I believe that puts me in pretty good stead.
The former Representative Steve Holland here tonight. He was representative nearly my entire life, so it's a little odd for me to say the former. He's going to join me on stage for question and answer, and I'm going to ask him a few questions, and then we're going to open it up, and if anybody in the audience has a question that they'd like to ask or comments that they'd like to make to the good gentleman, then we'll allow that. And Steve, if you want to have a seat right here.
Whatever the professor says, that's what I'm going to try to do.
Thank y'all for coming, first and foremost.
Steve, not that either of us need a microphone, but I do have one for
Okay,
you.
that'd be good. Well, I want to thank y'all for coming out to see this. Rex Jones
Stand up, Rex.
Rex Jones called me and said he wanted to produce a movie, a documentary of my life, and I said, I'm not interested at all. And I think we sort of got started on this because I ran into him, and he did the first clip on the sun and sand. We just happened to be there right before they were tearing the building down. And it was so much fun to me to go in there and visit one last time at that legislative frat house, because that's what it was. We really passed some good legislation. Sam McCoy is here. His father, Billy McCoy, was my best friend in the legislature, bar none. And we sat together 28 years and we're 2 rooms apart at the Sun and Sand. And Billy eventually became speaker, and I guess you might say I was his chief lieutenant. And so we made a lot of things happen from the Sun and Sand, and so did the rest of our colleagues. I want to thank President Ford and his wife for being here tonight. That's we started our state service about the same time. And so I know how old he is, and he knows how old I am, because we're both 1955 models. And I appreciate what he's doing here at Northeast. This is a wonderful, wonderful community college, and you should consider yourself lucky that the people of this county, service area, these counties, as well as the state legislature, provides what it does for y'all to get a wonderful education here. So thank you, President Ford.
Awesome. There were several quotes in the documentary that I just loved. One of the things that I really loved that you talked about was when you signed your desk in the legislature for the last time, you wrote, "Don't forget the least, the last, and the most vulnerable." And I think that really speaks a lot to you and your career, and obviously to why you decided to enter a life of public service and did it so well for 36 years. And so one of the things that I want to know about you and your time in the legislature is what is the thing that you're the proudest of in your career in the legislature? And then on the flip side, what is something that you really hoped to accomplish but didn't exactly see it accomplished within your 36 years?
Well, as far as a particular issue, I would say no doubt the 1987 highway program literally opened up our part of the world here in Northeast Mississippi to the rest of the world. And it was just monumental in its scope and in its capacity to bring new industry to this part of the world, to allow us to travel on safe roads, to connect to other roads where we get to wherever we're going in the country. And my friend Billy, as I mentioned, was really the ringleader. He and John David Pennebaker, both now in glory, was the ringleader, but I got to hold his hand through the whole process, and boy, did I learn a lot. That was in the first year of my second term when that passed, and we had toppled the old Delta regime that had held control of the Mississippi legislature, oh my God, for probably 30 years. Nothing wrong with the Delta. I got a great passion for the Delta. I love the Mississippi Delta for about 24 hours, and then I got to come back to the hills because I can't stand the flatlands much more than that. But the 87 highway program was my rallying cry. The other thing that I'm proud of that's not so much a particular piece of legislation, and I think I mentioned it in the documentary, and this is not a vain thing, I promise you. I got the vanity stomped out of me probably about 40 years ago, 35, 40. But facts are facts, you know. If it's the truth, it's just the truth. In 32 years of chairing committees in the state legislature, I never lost a bill. I never lost one bill on the floor of the House that came through my committee. How did I do that? I was mean. That's how I did it. You sat on my committee, you had to sit there and work. If you didn't want to do anything, I cast you aside and just told you just to follow me. And at least you'll be worth something if you'll do that. But I had people who just longed to be on my committees. Billy appointed me chairman of public health. I chaired the appropriations committee since 1986-7. on all public health issues. That's public health, mental health, vocational rehabilitation, University of Mississippi Medical Center in Jackson, hospitals, on and on and on. Healthcare is big, and it's still big. So the thing that I regret most is we never got Medicaid expansion passed in the state of Mississippi. Now, y'all, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, I don't care what you are, sort of immaterial in a way. They're both nasty as all get out now, and both so polarized that they can't even come together at the common table to even have a common prayer. That's how bad it is, and I'm telling you. And I've been gone 4 years, but it's gotten worse. The fact that people did not study or do not study issues anymore and very seldom ever have a public hearing just grieves me to no end. We had meetings. When Billy appointed me chairman of public health, I announced immediately after the appointment, the public health committee will meet at 7:30 every morning. If you don't want to get up at 7:30 and come meet work, get off the committee right now. I don't want you on here. And it's just amazing that the people that came forward and helped me get through that committee gets more bills, almost more than all the rest of the committees put together in the legislature. And it's a voluminous, sort of clumsy kind of committee because you're working on everything dealing with health care. That affects every citizen in the state. Medicaid was part of that, and I chaired that 32 years, so I became somewhat of the expert on Medicaid in the state of Mississippi. But we never had a bad time because I told the committee members, here's the deal. Now you offer your amendments in committee. You tear me apart. You give me 15 reasons why you want it this way and not this way, or the chairman wants it this way. And we'll discuss it until we get it discussed and come to agreement in this committee. And then when you go out on the floor of the House, if you vote against it, raise Cain about it, I'm going to fire you. It's just that simple. Now you got it right. If it takes 5 days or 10 days to get your point across, I'm giving you the time. You can bring anybody to testify you want to, but we're going to act in a democratic way. If we get 50% of the vote on this issue, I expect to get 100% on the floor of the House. And so that worked for me. It just really was, and we had a good time. I mean, I'd open up every committee meeting with a joke of the day, which got out of hand because we wound up having women and children in the legislature. And so we couldn't be quite as raw-balled as we once were. But I've always thought if you can laugh at my funeral business, it's real interesting the tack that I've taken, and it's not anything pre-planned necessarily. I just have learned the nature of grief. And all levels, I've been through it both with my parents and brother and a couple of best friends and that kind of thing. So I understand it pretty well. Never lost a child, thank God. But you've got to get people calm enough that they come to their senses and you can say something. I know every soul almost in Lee County by name. That's 90,000 people, believe it or not. But I studied my lesson and I studied my people and I always have, and I'm still doing it. If you can just get them to laugh about something that was funny about that life, it's almost like it breaks the ice and you're able to move forward and plan the right celebration that you want. And I think I've got God-given talents in that area. And so that's what I do 7 days a week now, night and day. Kenny McGill's here with me. He works for me. He's a Boonville native. And he's answering the phone tonight. Kenny's anybody died since we've been up here?
That's it.
Okay, well, good. Praise God. Hope they live at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's hard getting up at 2 o'clock at my age. So, but anyway, that's, I think that answers your question all the way around the world.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. So 36 years in the legislature, that's a lot of time for, the state of the state to change very significantly. I wondered if maybe you talk a little bit about that and how within your 36 years in the legislature, how the state changed and how it went, what your experience of the state changing was like.
Well, in, let's see, 1983, when my class was elected, and I think I've got this figure right, we literally defeated half of the legislature.
There were 59 of us that went in, 62 is half of the legislature. So we virtually, literally replaced the old line people that had been running the state. The people that were not for public education, by and large. Mr. Elmer McCoy, Billy's daddy, had to fight and scrape to get the free textbook law passed because the Delta people didn't think education was good because you might have to educate a black kid with a white kid. And I'm just being raw bald about that. It's the truth. And we didn't stand for it. Our average age of those 59 was 29 years of age. I was 27. And we went in, and we all pretty much had college degrees. We all pretty well were into our professions, whatever we've chosen. We all had young families. So we had this interesting kaleidoscope of what Mississippi needed, and we were just fearless enough to say, to hell with everybody. This is what we're going to do. And I had a lot of respect for Speaker Buddy Newman. I really did. He was about 50% of the time nice to me. One time he smarted off to one of my constituents who had had too much to drink, and the constituent pushed him in the swimming pool at the Sun and Sand. I thought I was going to go state pen for that, but we got around it. But we did away with that crowd, that mentality, and we had a fresher approach, is what we had. And we had people willing to work, to sit down and claw themselves into these committees and study issues like the prison and education and public health and conservation and agriculture and on and on and on. We significantly, Mr. Ford, strengthened the community college system in that point to a level that it had not been before. We were able to set priorities, is what I think I'm trying to say. And then we just about had enough votes. I mean, when we didn't have enough votes, we had enough strength to intimidate the others. And ultimately, in 1986, I guess it was, I got to be the spokesman for the group that went in and told Speaker Buddy Newman, who had been there 40 years, Mr. Newman, we've got the votes to oust you. So why don't you gently retire into the night? That's what we prefer. And he did. And then Tim Ford, who represented Prentice County and Lee County, became the speaker for 16 years, and Billy and I were in his bosom, so to say, so he really empowered us and gave us all the leadership rope that we could stand to either hang ourselves or get progressive legislation passed, and we did it. And there was just a sea change in the attitude of the state, the way the legislature prioritized money, how we tackled some issues like public kindergarten that there'd been resistance on. I think, well, as a matter of fact, I was told by the former chancellor of the University of Mississippi when he found out I was doing this, he said, I didn't want to do it. Rex made me. Did you make me, Rex? You really didn't have Tristan on too much.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. But Chancellor Kayak called me and he said, you know, your class, you do not realize the impact on the state of the Mississippi that the class of 1983 had. It had started with Billy's class in 1979, and that was William Winter's class, the only time he served as governor 4 years, and of course he was very pro public education and had a good perspective about him. So it took us about 4 years, and we just started the state on this scale of progress. And Chancellor Kayak said, I don't know of a soul that's more involved with it than you. So make the documentary and quit fighting. And that's how we're here tonight. I didn't ask for it, I promise. I'm not that vain. When you look death in the face every day, you're not very vain because you know you might be the next one out there.
So you have 36-year career to look back on and to think about the ways that the state has changed. And so I want to know, what do you hope, or what is your vision for the state of Mississippi moving forward?
Let me tell you what's happened. And this is Steve Holland's opinion, but I can back it up with every fact you want to know. Somewhere along the line, we got polarized.
Now, again, I think I mentioned in the movie, when we all went in '83, we were all Democrats. I think we had 5 Republicans and 1 woman. Now the legislature's about 40% ladies, which is I'm 100% for. I believe in women, and I believe in the power of women. Might go to preaching here in a minute. Holy Spirit, come up on me now. We just were devoted, and we were just hell-bent, if you will, that we were going to move this state forward, and we were not going to let anything or anybody get in our way. And it pretty much worked. I mean, if you categorize 1988 to about 2000, really all the way through Billy's first term as Speaker, the Republicans started gathering forces, and they were doing the same thing that we had done in 1987 by defeating a lot of us. And all of a sudden it became majority Republican, and everybody started switching parties after they got elected as a Democrat, which I thought was heresy myself, and hypocrisy to do that. Get elected one ticket, next week change to another party. I tried to introduce bills for years that said, if you're going to change, you got to change before you run. You cannot change parties in your term. But there was a big sweep of conservatism, and I'm not opposed to conservatism. It is, to a large degree, in my opinion, the opposite of progress. I mean, I like more. I gave a speech one time and said we ought to just take the eagle off the Capitol and melt the gold down and sell it and give it to the 15 community colleges in Mississippi, because we'll reap returns exponentially. But this crowd didn't think like that. They wanted to take away instead of give. And we got into a struggle, and just quite frankly, they won. They polarized the state, and by when did Billy go out? 2012, I believe. They had the super majority. And so they tried to quiet me down, but they forgot that, number one, thanks to Speaker McCoy, I'd learned the rules of the House. He was the absolute best on the rules of the House. I'll tell you a little story real quick. What we got on time? Everybody okay? First year I was in the legislature, Billy sought me out. He and Mr. Elmer, his daddy, and my daddy raised cattle together and bought and been at sale cars together and so forth. So we knew the McCoy family in Prentice County with a lot of them. So Billy cornered me the minute I got elected. He said, "You're going to sit by me." And I said, "I think that'd be absolutely wonderful." And so we did. And the first week we were there, Governor Lane was the governor then. He came in under great controversy. We had a major Medicaid crisis. Now, I had worked in healthcare with Mr. Whitman in the United States Capitol, healthcare, agriculture, and transportation, and I knew a little about those areas. And I asked for that and got on the first appropriations committee. I was appointed there as a freshman, which is a high honor, and because he was chairman of the appropriations committee in the federal Congress. But Billy, the governor came up with this idea we'd take $10 million from the highway program to shore up Medicaid, because we didn't even have enough money to match our federal funds. And Billy looked at me and he said, "You'll lead a slow death if you vote for that." And I said, "Well, I'm going to vote for it, Billy. I appreciate the fact you're against it, but I'm for it. The highway department's flush right now with funds. And we just need $10 million. I'm willing to put an amendment in the bill. We'll pay it back by next year. But we got to have it. We have no choice." Well, we ultimately won. We that wanted the $10 million to keep Medicaid alive. And Billy, the day that bill passed, he looked at me and he said, "God, I'm through talking to you." And we sat next to each other for 30 days and didn't say a word to each other. Not one word. So about the 30th day, I walked in and I said, "I tell you what, Billy, you're a scruffy man, and I know that, but I was raised on a farm too. Let's just walk out in the hall and duke each other out and see which one wins so we can talk." He didn't say a word. I said, "Billy, you're going to talk to me now. I can't take this anymore. I had a right to vote my people the way I saw, and we have to win, and you need to get over it, because that's in the past now." So he pulled his rule book out. That their little rule book looked like like you get the little Bible, they give you in about the 5th grade or 6th. He started Rule 1. And when he got to Rule 26, now he hadn't said a word to me, he's just reading the rules. I said, "What are you doing?" And he looked at me and smiled real big. He said, "I don't believe there's a rule in here, Holland, that says I got to ever talk to you again. But I think I'm going to do it." Pretty priceless moment for me, I'm telling you. We did have a crossword or two. I had a vice chairman of my committee one time that skipped the conference weekend. I had public health and human services. I gave her the human services side and I kept the public health bills. She didn't even show up for conference. She had 19 bills in conference. So guess what the chairman did? I killed every one of them. And she came back with fire. Never would give an excuse. Even Billy called her 5 times to try to figure out where she was because I didn't want to do this. But honestly, I knew a little bit about it. I could have gotten through probably. But that was her job. That was her responsibility. I'd signed that to her. And so I was presenting my public health bills on the floor, and she made every bill be read. And finally, it was about a 1,250-page bill, and she said, "Chairman Holland, you shall read this bill to me." And I didn't do anything but stand up. I was already at the podium. I took that 1,202-page bill, and I boomeranged it across the chamber at her, and it hit her right on the side of the neck like a killer. And boy, Billy went ballistic. Boom, 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 boom. Chairman Holland, you're out of order. You apologize to the lady. I said, "I'm not going to apologize to her. I'm fixing to tell y'all why I did it. She didn't do her responsibility, and I killed the bills because she was out gallivanting somewhere all weekend. Never answered a phone call. I got them all on my cell phone where I tried to call. He said, "Shut up. You're not going to tell that. You're not going to argue there to learn you're on the floor." And I said, "Well, if I am, if you're going to try to make me apologize, I need my defense side." And he finally adjourned the house, and I apologized to him in his office, but I never did apologize to old Mary until the session was over, and I wrote her a love letter and sent her a dozen roses. As far as I know, she still loves me.
So at this point, I want to open up for questions from the audience. If anybody has anything that you'd like to ask or any comments for the former gentleman from Lee County. Any questions?
Don't be bashful. Yes, sir.
For the first time in about 40 years, the Mississippi legislature has purchased new chairs for the members of the city.
That's correct.
Granted, they're so new that they had to make instructional videos to teach the legislators how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
But they've also offered the chairs to the former members of the legislature to purchase. Former Representative Dick Bain purchased the chair he and Billy McCoy sat in so long. Sam, you now know where Billy's chair is now. And Nick donated that chair to the Crossroads Museum in Corinth.
Good man.
Do you have any inkling or idea if you want to purchase your chair?
I've already purchased mine, and I got a call this afternoon right before I left to come up here and said, "You got 2 days to get to Jackson and get your chair. We're going to dump it." So I'm hiring somebody to go in there and get it tomorrow because I ain't got time to go to Jackson. I got funerals tomorrow.
Where are you going to put it?
I'm going to put it at Mississippi State University in the Holland Archives, where everything dealing with the legislature is going to ultimately go when I'm in that crematory. Yeah, they've got quite a collection down there. They teach political science students out of my collection. I'm a pack rat anyway. I've saved when my mother died 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, she had all 6 of us boys report cards from the 1st grade to the 12th. So I got it honestly. And I decided I'd just throw mine away because it was not any good anymore. I made it fairly successfully, I guess. But I'm going to put mine in the archives at Mississippi State. My longtime committee assistant is now the assistant to the speaker, Tammy Cowell. And Tammy called me and he said, "You're not gonna believe it, your chair is the only one left that's not claimed." I said, "How much money do I need to wire you?" It cost $250, which I mean, it's sentimental value. I don't know where it went. I guess it was state treasurer. Hope it didn't go in somebody's pocket. But anyway, I'm looking forward to getting my chair because I warmed that thing up 36 years. Really did. And you know, it's really interesting. All four of us on our road, occasionally when the porters would clean the chambers before we came back in the next morning, so we'd be ready to go, would swap our chairs up. Well, they didn't swap them up for long. I could tell how Billy sat, he could tell how I sat, Nick Bain and all Harvey Moss and all the guys that was on that road with David Barry. So I'm getting my chair, and Nick got Billy's chair. He called and told me about that, so I'm glad he's making good use of it.
Any other questions?
Any of y'all registered to vote? Good for you. It's very important, extremely important. Now, I don't say that you've got to aspire to get into public service. You can do public service without being elected. There's a lot of public service positions out there. You can just be a good citizen, and that's a major contribution. But I would admonish you. Now, the great horror of state government's going to get in your wallet every year of your life. So you need to get engaged, and you need to try to keep an intellectual perspective on who's running, and actually search their record out and make sure they're doing what you want them to do by and large. You can't always do what everybody wants to do. Some issues are just split 50-50 in public response, and you've got to listen to the facts and make your own decision up. But I really think now the big problem we got is everybody's vanilla in the legislature. And they're told what to do. They're told from the top down. Now we had our kitchen cabinet meetings every day when Billy was speaker and Tim Ford was speaker. You got to do that because it's an incredibly belligerent organization if you want to know the truth. But today they don't even have hearings. Speaker just sends by computer how they'll vote, who's going to talk, and it's just so artificial. It's the only word I can think of. That I just couldn't stand it anymore. So I may be the most grateful guy in the state of Mississippi that got defeated after 36 years. I just didn't want to go back, but I offered anyway. Now I can tell you one thing, I didn't sweat much on this ball head. I just said I've been there 36 years. Actually, my mama said this to me. She said, "Son, we got work to do here in funeral. If they re-elect you, that'll be fine. If they don't, there's plenty of work to do here. But if they don't know you by now, they will never know you." And I said, "Thank you, right, Mom." I won by 101 votes. I got beat the first time as a Republican when I ran by 101 votes. I beat the guy that beat me 101 votes. And in the end, I got beat by 101 votes. So 101 needs to be, I don't know what that means, but maybe I need to ask my Methodist preacher. I'm sure he knows everything. But anyway. What else we got? Anybody else got any questions? You can ask questions.
I also wrote the quote down, don't forget to lease the wax and the moat.
Yeah, I think I never did answer that, did I?
But my concern is I'm extremely discouraged right now with what's going on. Because I don't believe that that's their vision. I don't believe that that's our state legislature's vision right now. And Medicaid expansion is one example of it.
Yes.
Another example is the school, the free reduced.
MAEP, yeah.
The free and reduced $120 this coming summer that our, I don't know how you can look at that and say that you are for true Mississippians.
Well, I had to quit reading the paper after I left. I just couldn't deal with it, and I've not watched a lot of news either since I left the legislature. I've got 3 college degrees, and I really don't know how to operate a computer. I went to our fellow school here, ICC, in October for a one-day training on how everything you need to know to use a computer and a cell phone. 15 minutes after I was in there, It was in October. I broke out, my clothes were solid wet all over, and I just raised my hand and said, keep you $100, I'm leaving here. I've made enough money, by God, I can hire somebody to run my computer. And that's just about the way I feel about it. But there's no progress. It is, how can we cut somebody, not how we can empower somebody. Now, we've got a PERS crisis. PERS is the Public Employees Retirement System of Mississippi. We've been knowing we've had that crisis for a long time. That's not new news. The board has sent over all kinds of recommendations to make it solid, but we didn't have the courage to do it. And I'm saying we, they've basically come in the last 8 years, which was supermajority Republican reign. They just turned their back up when you bring it out of committee. But their way of fixing that is they're going to wipe out the elected board, and they're going to appoint 9 people that the governor gets to appoint to take care of $33.3 billion that every state employee since 1952 has contributed to, made low pay during their whole career, but was told, if you live 25 years with this, we're going to reward you. And that's just one example. They want to get their hands on that big pot of money. Well, I got a call from the chairman today. I'd made a statement that Mississippi Today had called me about. And I said, by God, they need an adult guardian out there is what they need. They need somebody to read to them and explain the facts to them, because they don't even have a committee hearing. The chairman of that committee brought that legislation out. Speaker put on his computer, vote yes. They didn't even have any discussion on it. Well, look how many people, 323,000 people retired now, and they've cut state agencies. There's 12% school teacher vacancy in public schools around the state. I don't know what it's like in the community college system. And the only way you can recruit somebody really in Mississippi to live with our low wages is guarantee them a future at the end. You sign a contract.